Hello and welcome back to Mass Effect 3.2. This is my campaign to persuade BioWare to make an alternate version of Mass Effect 3. Now, as you all probably know, it's been quite a while since my last video, and I apologize for that. My life has just been so busy right now. I mentioned in a comment on my channel that I had a research paper that was due, and earlier this week we had to put our dog down, and I've had really long shifts of work, Bible studies, and just all this crazy stuff, so I apologize that I haven't been able to make one, but I'm excited to start doing it now. But anyway, enough about me, let's get started. So my last video was focused on Miranda, and it also briefly covered Mordin, and this video will focus on Samara and Morinth, as well as down in the mission section, Priority Kahje, which is a new mission, but I'll get to that later. Just know that they're closely tied, Samara and Morinth, and this new priority mission. So, that is why I am merging them into one video. Okay, so let's get started with Samara and Morinth. Samara's role during Mass Effect 3 was highly disappointing. The player barely got to interact with her before she was shipped off as a war asset. Morinth's role would also need to be changed for my proposed alternative to work. For the majority of the proposed role for Samara and Morinth, please see Priority Kahje under the mission section. However, I do believe that the mission on Lessus should be the first time we see Samara or Morinth in Mass Effect 3, and it should be made a priority mission instead of an optional side quest. If Samara was chosen in Mass Effect 2, the mission would remain fundamentally the same, but without the spur-of-the-moment code decision to kill herself. Essentially, if Samara survived the suicide mission, she would also survive the Lessus mission. If Morinth was chosen in Mass Effect 2, she would appear in Samara's place and explain that perhaps Shepard, quote, taught her a little something about the importance of unity, and she felt obligated to help her sisters when she heard that the monastery had been attacked, even though she probably won't live to regret it. If Samara or Morinth was killed in a suicide mission, neither would be present, and Falere would simply identify herself as Samara's daughter. Regardless of who was chosen in Mass Effect 2, and if she survived, the Asari would come aboard the Normandy after the mission and be available for a quick dialogue, similar to the intervals when Rex, Mordin, Legion, etc. are on board. She would remain on the Normandy until the next priority mission, again see Priority Kahje. Falere would also be shipped off to a safe destination. The Citadel, Thessia, it doesn't really matter. Okay, moving on to Priority Kahje. This completely new mission would be acquired right after Priority Lessus, and right before Priority the Citadel 3. After Falere has been shipped off to her destination and Samara Morinth is aboard the Normandy, see Samara Morinth, which we just covered, Shepard would be notified by Admiral Hackett via VidCom that the Alliance has received a garbled transmission from Kahje, the Hanar homeworld. Hackett would explain that a Hanar scientist whose face name is Dr. Corimus has sent what appears to be a request for help from Kahje. The message says something about major and Kindler discovery. The player could, via a dialogue option on the left of the wheel, inquire about the term if desired, and imminent Reaper attack, and need reinforcements. Not knowing what sort of impact this Kindler discovery could make in the Reaper War, Hackett sends Shepard to Kahje to assist in the evacuation of Dr. Corimus and its team. At this point, Samara Morinth would approach Shepard and offer to assist in the mission. It wouldn't have to be a very long mission. Shepard, along with the chosen squad mates and Samara Morinth, would arrive via shuttle at the coordinates and find the planet already under attack. The player would fight through some Reaper forces to Dr. Corimus' laboratory and find the Hanar scientist barricaded inside with a small squad of Drell soldiers. Side note, Dr. Corimus would have to look slightly different so the player could distinguish it from other Hanar. Perhaps it could be a different shade of pink, or maybe have several rings around its tentacles, as marks of accomplishment, like badges or medals. Dr. Corimus would have to be shown as an obviously esteemed scientist. Once Shepard arrives, Dr. Corimus would explain that, after extensive study for many years, it is on the verge of unlocking the secrets of Mass Effect technology. However, there is insufficient data on Kahje. Dr. Corimus would request that it be escorted along with its Drell guard force to the planet Ilos, as the Protheans in that underground bunker were also on the verge of understanding Mass Effect technology. Corimus explains that it hopes to finish its research safely tucked away on Ilos, where perhaps it can find more useful data. Shepard would then contact the Normandy and request that another shuttle be brought down to the planet's surface to escort Dr. Corimus and his Drell force. Shepard, the squad, Samara Morinth, Dr. Corimus, and the Drell soldiers would subsequently fight through a relentless barrage of Reaper forces to get back to the shuttles. This could either be playable or shown through a cutscene. Soon, the group realizes that there will not be enough time to get both shuttles to safety, and this is where Samara Morinth's big impact comes in. The Asari would offer to stay behind and deploy a biotic barrier, similar to the bubble during the suicide mission. If Samara Morinth was chosen as the biotic specialist in Mass Effect 2, she would say, like the one I used to shield us from the Seeker swarms on the Collector base. If Jack or another character was the biotic specialist, the dialogue would be altered accordingly. If Samara Morinth was loyal during Mass Effect 2, she would provide enough time for both shuttles to escape safely, yet she would be killed, having volunteered to stay behind. If done correctly, this could be a very emotional death scene similar to Morden's. If Samara Morinth was not loyal during Mass Effect 2, she collapses from exhaustion, her biotic barrier broken, and the Reaper forces manage to shoot down Dr. Corimus' shuttle before it can escape. Shepard and squad would be in the other shuttle, Cortez's. If Samara Morinth died during the suicide mission, she would not be present at all, and the Reaper forces would again be able to shoot down Dr. Corimus' shuttle. Dr. Corimus' survival would play a major impact on the ending of the game. See Consequences of Choice in the ending section, which we will get to in a later video. Okay, so Samara's role bugged me the most in Mass Effect 3. I was a big fan of her in Mass Effect 2. I was a big fan of all the characters in Mass Effect 2. I thought they did a great job, the character writers, with their characters. And Samara's maybe of everyone else's, except maybe Jacob's. But Samara's role in Mass Effect 3 was the most rushed, I guess you could say. I mean, that's just kind of how it felt. It just felt rushed. She's on this planet that you have to go to. You meet her, then you part ways for most of the mission until the very end, where she just kind of sits there and protects her daughters while you fight off some banshees. And then she either commits suicide or you can save her and Valair can stay in the monastery. And then, of course, there's the dialogue conversation with her later on the Citadel, but that's just stupid and not worth it. I really did not think that her character was done the justice that it deserved in this game. And again, with my philosophy that each squad mate should have a major impact on the ending of the game, it just was not acceptable at all. And about the suicide, that kind of leads me to my next point, which was that suicide was contradictory to what she believed in the second one. Granted, in the second game, it was kind of fuzzy about what exactly she believed, and probably someone could pick out some contradictions if they really tried, but the contradiction was blatantly obvious in the third one. The most basic fundamental part of the code, at least the one that is the most important to us as Shepard, is she will die to save the innocent, and she will kill the guilty without reserve. And her suicide totally contradicts that. According to her in the third game, her code does not permit her to let an ardat-yakshi go free from a monastery, which doesn't make any sense at all, because if you read the messages in that monastery, you can see that they go to the Citadel on like tours and stuff, and actually they can be released from the monastery after it is presumed that they are sufficient and trained enough to socialize in modern society without having the urge to kill. And again, an Asari is born as an ardat-yakshi. She doesn't have a choice. And so particularly for someone like Valair, who wanted to spend her life normally as opposed to Morinth, she wanted to train herself and resist her urges so that she could re-enter galactic society. She was innocent, and yet somehow Samara has to kill herself because there's a chance that Valair could go free. It just doesn't make any sense, and I hope you can see that. So, like I said, if she survived the suicide mission, Samara or Morinth, she would survive the Lessus mission. No code decision to commit suicide, it was just contradictory. And you may be asking if you're really nitpicking my ideas, which is fine, I enjoy the feedback. If she remains on the Normandy after the Lessus mission and until the Kahje mission, which of course those are back-to-back priority missions, at least in Mass Effect 3.2 they would be. But of course between priority missions you can do any number of side missions. So you may be asking, well, why can't she come on those side missions? She should become a full-fledged squad member, or at least a temporary one. And there is a reason, and my reason would be that she has to meditate. Of course, she meditates a lot in the second game, and during that brief dialogue conversation that Shepard can have with her, you know, she's a very spiritual person, so she could say that she almost feels the death in the galaxy and that it's hurting her soul and she has to meditate. And then when the player activates the next priority mission on Kahje, she would come to Shepard and say, I'm recovered, I'm ready to fight now. And then she would ask to accompany him on the mission, and that would be that. I mentioned up here earlier too about the garbled message, Major Enkindler Discovery would be part of it, and I said that the player could, via a dialogue option on the left of the wheel, inquire about the term if desired. That was just to maybe help new players feel integrated into the game, because, you know, if you're just starting your playthrough on Mass Effect 3, you don't really know exactly much about the Hanar, and so it would just be a nice little way, and Hackett could explain that's what the Hanar call the Protheans, and yada yada yada. So that's why I just threw that in there. Now Samara's Death, and I say Samara or Morinth. Forgive me if I keep saying Samara. In my playthrough, that's who I chose. I am planning on doing a Renegade playthrough soon and picking Morinth, so I apologize if I'm offending you if you chose Morinth, but I am just going to use Samara now for the sake of time. But multiple different ways she could die. Morden's death, I think, really captured the emotional aspect of the war, the entire Reaper War that's going on in the third game. That sacrifice, the truly living out his purpose and what he needed to be and what he needed to do. And that was great, and I think that that could also be shown somewhat in Samara's death, because she is dying for the innocent, for Dr. Koramis and the Drell. And so she's kind of fulfilling her life's purpose too. But I also thought that her death would be a good opportunity to show not just the sacrifices made in the war, but also the horrible brutality of the war. Because death is a tragic thing, and it's not always just a explosion and then a cutoff, like in Morden's scene, which I'm not nagging on that at all. That was so brilliantly done. But there is blood, and there's death, and there's mutilation involved in a war like this, particularly when it's against the Reapers. And so I thought Samara's death could be tragic and emotional, but also really show that brutality. So there are multiple different ways that they could do it. The one thought I had is that she's crouching behind cover and holding that biotic barrier, and then when she realizes that the shuttles have made it to safety, they're past gun range for the Reapers to hit, she finally releases the barrier and, of course, is rather exhausted from holding it, and just kind of starts to smile and stand up slightly. And you're really in that moment thinking, yes, okay, great, both shuttles made it to safety. And then all of a sudden, Samara just gets sniped, for lack of a better word. So you see, we had this close-up of her face as she's finally rising, and then she just gets sniped by a Reaper. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's horrible, there's a splatter of blood or something. You think, oh my gosh, Samara, this character that I know and loved, and I'm watching her being mutilated, and then her body could be like dragged away by a cannibal or something. And I know it sounds kind of disturbing, I'm a dark child, but I think that it would show the brutality that comes with war. It's not just emotional sacrifices, it's also brutality and torture and mutilation. And I think that Samara's Death is a perfect opportunity to show that. So that could definitely be one way that they could do it. Of course, the BioWare team is really creative with stuff like this. They proved that with Morinth's death and Legion's and everyone else's, so they could definitely think of a really creative way to display her death. So, I believe that's all I have to say for Samara. Like I said, I did really enjoy her character, and Morinth too. Was really disappointed with her role in the third game. Hardly had any interaction with her. Of course, she became another stupid war asset. Ugh. Again, I'm sorry that it's taken so long to get this video out. Hopefully it won't be as long till the next one. I'll be able to do it soon. But anyway, let me know what you thought of my ideas on Samara and Morinth in the comment section. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you notice any errors of any kind, be it a typographical error or something that could create a plot hole later on, or just anything, let me know as well. Hit the like button, please. Let's try and raise the awareness for Mass Effect 3.2. And I will see you next time with the conclusion of the character segment of the Mass Effect 3.2 document. So again, thanks for watching.